Disneyland Paris, a magical dreamland or an overhyped letdown? Let's go through the rides and see which ones should stay and which ones should vanish. I'm going to start with one of their newest attractions, and that of course is that they did Avengers Campus. Now, they took a ride that was already there and they basically gave it a bit of a facelift. It used to be Rock and Roller Coaster, and I went on it way back when it was still there, and now of course it is Avengers Flight Force. This is an interesting ride because the area is spectacular. They've done a fantastic job of theming this. It looks beautiful. So, like, just the outside is fantastic. The interior, the queue line, great. That Iron Man statue, the pre-show, just everything about it is fantastic. Until you get on the ride. And then it just all falls apart. Now, the ride experience, that initial launch is really, really punchy. And it's a decent layer. I think I've said before, I went on... I can't remember the name of the ride. The one in Wallaby, Holland, that's basically exactly the same but outside. And it was just boring. The ride experience is fantastic. The problem is, when they rethemed it from being Rock and Roller Coaster to this, they kind of took all the theming and put it on the outside and didn't put any in the ride itself. So you're basically shooting through in the dark. There's a couple of screens, there's a couple of little bits, but it's super minimal. So not going to start very strong with this one because as it stands, I'd scrap it. There's another coaster here that is... I'm much more of a fan of this one, and that is Crush's Coaster. Now, I mean, it's another Maurer spinning coaster, so basically the same sort of thing as Spinball Whizzer in Alton Towers, Dragon's Fury at Chessington, etc. But this one, like, again, is Disney, right? So the theming in the station is fantastic, you know, mine, 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 all that sort of stuff. You get on it, goes out, then goes round, and there's a little kind of outdoor section, which is kind of cool. And then you go back in, and there's sort of like a wee sort of dark ride sort of section. You go past all the sort of fish and stuff, and then you go up the lift hill, and then you're into the main ride. And I really, really enjoy this one. Now, I took my partner on this one. She does not do spinning coasters, and I managed to get her on this, and even she enjoyed it. So this one, unlike the last one, I'm going to keep. There's a coaster here that I have only been on once, and that is more than enough for me because it wasn't the best. And that is the Indiana Jones Temple of Peril ride. When I went before, it's been closed, or I just didn't fancy it. Like, I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, probably before I'd really got into theme parks to the extent I am now, and it was like, oh, that looks a little bit too much with the inversion and all that sort of stuff. I went on it recently on the trip. I'll put the video at the end of this video where I tried to do Disney in 7 hours. So check that one out if you haven't already. But basically, I went on this and it's an absolute headbanger. It's not very comfortable. So yeah, it's a one and done, and I would scrap it. Now, they have a decent selection. I don't know if this one classes as a flat ride because it's sort of halfway between coaster and flat. It probably is a flat ride, and that is RC Coaster. Now, it's basically just like a half pipe. You sit in the car and it kind of goes back and forward and stuff. Conceptually, it's okay, right? I mean, it's a kid's ride, so it's not going to be anything spectacular. And you only get a couple of back and forths on it because it's not, by its very definition, it can only have a single vehicle, right? So it's not great for getting through large queues, which means that it always has a queue, or at least every time I've been, it's got a queue. And you end up with a short cycle to try it because they're trying to manage that queue. I like the idea of it, and I think if they were able to manage the operations better, they probably need 2 of them to be fair, then it would be better. So I'm going to put this one in the take it or leave it pile. Typically, I'm not the biggest fan of simulator screen-based attractions. There are some exceptions, and this next one is one of them, and that is Star Tours The Adventure Continues. Now, if you've never been on it, basically it is Star Wars themed. You go in, again, beautifully immersive queue line and all that kind of stuff. It's fantastic. And then you get in and there's multiple of these kind of simulator rides. You put on the 3D glasses and then you sit down and stuff. There's a few things about this one. They always pick on somebody in the ride. So, you know, as you're getting seated, they're secretly taking a photo of one of the passengers. It's never the same seat, so it's not like you know where it's going to be. And then, of course, when the thing starts, that's the kind of the fugitive that they're smuggling type thing, which is quite cool, quite a nice little addition. And the way that they've done this, it's the same in the Florida version as well. It is like nowadays, because it's all digital, I don't think it was in the original version, it's basically a bank of scenes. So it is randomly generated. And of course, every time you go to hyperspace, they can just cut from one scene to another. So they can mash these. There's probably thousands of combinations that they can do, which makes it a very, very re-rideable attraction. And I'm a huge fan of this one. So yeah, I'm definitely going to keep it. The other Star Wars ride that I'm a fan of is Hyperspace Mountain. Now, I know there's a lot of people that wish this didn't have the Star Wars overlay on it, and I think there's some rumblings that it may be getting reverted back to just plain Space Mountain. I like this Space Mountain. I think it is one of the better ones. Now, to be fair, I've only done 2 of them. There are multiple. But I prefer this one. It's got over-the-shoulder restraints, fair enough. I mean, it does invert, right? So and that's always the one that catches people out, because you take your bags on with you and they just sit at your feet. You're like, okay, but I'm going upside down twice. Okay, that's how physics works. It's not going to fall out. But the overlay on this one, I kind of agree with people. It's a little bit lacking. It's not as bad as the Avengers Flight Force at the start. That is terrible. This is at least passable. But again, the ride itself is great. So yeah, no surprises. I'm going to keep this one. Right, sticking with their big rides, and they've got the Tower of Terror. Now, I've only done this one in the Florida version. I'd love to get on the Guardians of the Galaxy one, although a lot of people are against it, but I like Guardians of the Galaxy. This one, however, so if you've done the one in Florida, you know that it was the original, it's a prototype, and it's the only one where the kind of elevators leave the lift shaft, drive around, and then drop. This one just goes back and forward and straight up and down. But this is a randomized sequence. It's got the whole creepy kids storyline. Like, I think it's the better story, although I like the Florida version. And again, randomized. I think there's 2 or 3 different story lines that it has in there after they did the refit. And again, it's Disney, it's very well themed, so no surprises. This one's going in that keep pile. Right, we're on a roll, because yet another one of their big attractions, Big Thunder Mountain. And I think this is probably, well, again, I've only been to 2 Disneys, but I think this is the best Big Thunder out of the 2 that I've done. The fact that this one is on an island, so of course to start with, you have to kind of get to the island, and at the end you have to, so there's that whole underwater section in the dark tunnel. It's just fantastic, and it is just bonkers, and I absolutely love it, and I could lap this thing, apart from the queues of course, all day long. So there's no surprises that Big Thunder is getting a big thumbs up. I'm going to keep it. Right, the next one's a bit of a dying breed, and that is Autopia. Now, I mean, it's basically just a car ride where you think you're driving. I mean, you've got control over the pedals to make it go. You do have a steering wheel. It doesn't really do a huge amount, and you end up just getting guided by the guide rail in the middle. So, you know, there's that. It's one of the ones that's still petrol. I think there's talk about it becoming electric. I'm assuming it's going to, you know, but it is, as far as I'm aware, still petrol. It says so online, so I'm going to believe it. Because I didn't go on it when I was there in December. I was doing everything else and I didn't get around to it. It's a funny one. I think this one, for me, it is a classic attraction. It's great for the kids. They think they're driving. But it's definitely one that I can skip. And as I just said, when I was there in December, I did skip it. So I'm going to put this one in Take It or Leave It. Right, when I was going through the list of this one, I found this ride that I do not have any recollection of. And I'm sort of surprised. So that means either I have been on it and it was like, it left no lasting impression, or I'm an idiot and I've walked past it every single time. And that is the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs ride. Now, I don't understand how I would have missed this. And I've looked at POVs and it looks reasonable. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I did walk past this because I would have remembered that. So because of that, I can't really put it in the keep and I can't put it in the scrap. I'm just going to have to put it in the middle and say take it or leave it. If you see my other videos, you know that it's quite common for parks to have some form of sort of shooter ride. Actually, Blackpool doesn't have one. Maybe that's what they should get. Anyway, they have Buzz Lightyear. And it's kind of, it's pretty good in that it's sort of, I mean, you've obviously got the guns for shooting, right? And as far as shooter rides go, it's a decent one in terms of you can tell what you're shooting at. It's not just random, and the targets tend to work very well. But they've also got this wee joystick in the middle so that you can spin the car around to face wherever you want, which is pretty cool as well. And then there's like a, I don't know if it's a trommel tunnel. There's definitely a tunnel that you go through and it kind of is a little bit disorientating. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I think this one's pretty cool. It's obviously just had a lot of love, just had a refit, so I'm going to keep it. Right, if you think Disneyland Paris is a fantastic park, how about you hit that like button? And if you're enjoying this video, hit that subscribe button as well. Right, now another attraction that's had some love, but I don't think it's quite worked out for them, is Cars Road Trip. Now, this used to be the sort of tram tour backlot thing, so you would go around and see lots of props from movies and different scenes and stuff, and then obviously culminating in the sort of oil tanker that explodes and then all the water comes down. They basically butchered this because, well, they needed the space for all the expansion they're doing, and they've themed it to cars. Now, it's still the same tram that takes you around. It's a fraction of the route that it used to be, because as I say, they're using that space for other things. They've kept the exploding tanker, obviously themed it around cars. I was a little bit disappointed by it. I think it's now too short. I think it's a bit of a letdown. Yeah, okay, there's that one scene is fantastic, but there used to be multiple scenes that were good to see and like lots of effects, and now it's just a few props and that. So yeah, I don't think this has worked out for them. I don't know if it is temporary. Like, it feels like it probably isn't, because surely when they closed it to make way for all this new stuff, they would have just got rid of it completely, instead of doing this work to overlay it. So unfortunately, I think it's going to stay, but personally, I would scrap it. The next one, there's a couple that my French is terrible. So the next one is the Casey Junior train. Now, what is it? Le Petit Train de Cirque. So the little circus train, probably. Listen, it's a cute little ride. It is, again, very much aimed at that younger audience, but I found it quite enjoyable. I've not been on it for many years, but yeah, I think it's cute, it's very well themed, and I keep it. And then just beside that, there is a boat ride, the name of which I am not even going to attempt. I'll put it up on screen instead. But basically, there's a little boat ride that goes around various fairy tales. I just did one recently on Legoland. They've got the same sort of idea with their fairy tale brook. Conceptually very similar. You're sitting in a boat, you're going through fairy tales. It's pretty cute. So, although I can't pronounce it, I keep it. Right, we're on a bit of a run because the next one is a sort of suspended indoor dark ride, and that is Peter Pan. And again, I think this is very well done. There's no surprises when it comes to theming. Disney know what they're doing. There's a couple of missteps, we've touched on some of them already, but this one is not one of them. You obviously start off, you're in this kind of suspended boat thing, and you go through Wendy's bedroom, and then out you go, and then you're over Neverland, and then you've got all the pirates and the crocodile and all that kind of cool stuff. And it's just, I mean, it tells you the tale. It is fantastic. So yeah, we're going to keep this one as well. And then they've got their Omni-mover, and that is the Phantom Manor. Now, basically the haunted house. It's a good one. It's interesting, I think. I mean, it's not that dissimilar to the one over in Florida. It's got the same kind of room that you stand in the pre-show where it kind of extends and all the pictures change and stuff. And then you've got the sort of floating head, you've got the Pepper's Ghost effect, you've got the sort of gravestone head things that sing and dance and stuff. So there's a lot of it that's basically the same as the others. But I do think it is enjoyable, and well, it's one that I would go on every time I visit, and I'll keep it. Right, another ride they've got there is their boat ride, bigger boat ride. We've touched on some little kids one, and that is Pirates of the Caribbean. And I like this one too. Now, I've only been on this once, believe it or not, and that was my last visit, because every time I've been, it's been closed for maintenance or something else has been going on and I've not got on it. It's very good. It's very good. Again, there's not a huge difference between it and the Florida version. Well, one difference is that the Florida version has had Johnny Depp in it as Captain Jack a few times. As far as I'm aware, the French version never has. Yeah, and obviously they sing in French, as you'd expect. You're in France, so there's bits of it I don't understand, but you know, you're there to see the animatronics, and it's beautifully themed. So we're going to keep this one as well. The next one has changed since I was last, or on my last visit it had changed, I should say, and that is Ratatouille. And the reason I say that is because it used to be 3D, as in you had to wear the stupid glasses. I didn't have to when I went in December. It was just get on the ride and off you go. And I mean, that made it great for me to get a POV, because I did get a POV in America, and I mean, unless you're wearing 3D glasses, it's kind of pointless. But this one, they've taken the 3D off, and the storyline still works. It's great. Huge props. You know, there's a bit where you're supposed to be under the table, and there's big giant wheels beside you moving, and there's a bit where you're kind of under like a heated trolley, and then there's heat comes down on you. Like it's full senses. It is fantastic. The bits that are screen-based, they are immersive. They're not kind of like obviously screen-based. I mean, you know it's a screen, obviously, but like it doesn't take you out of that immersion, it adds to it. So yeah, another one that I'm gonna keep on their roster. Heading back over to sort of Toy Story land, they've got their Slinky Dog. Now theirs is called Slinky Dog Zig Zag Spin. And unfortunately, it is not the same as the American version, because the American version is a rather long coaster, multiple trains, like a launch coaster, and it's good fun. This is a little roundabout. So it's literally like Slinky Dog is in a full revolution, biting his own tail kind of thing, and he just goes round in a circle. So that one's a bit of a letdown. I don't see the point in it, I'd scrap it. Right, heading back over to the Avengers campus, the newest attraction that is there is their Spider-Man one. This is a weird one because, as you'd expect, brand new land, Disney, very well themed, right? I've said that multiple times in this video because it's very well themed. It's a little weird seeing Tom Holland speaking in French. Evidently he wasn't, but it's been dubbed into French, and that's just weird. Don't know why they didn't do his bit in English with subtitles and then do the rest of it in French with English subtitles. Anyway, that's what it is. If you saw my Legoland one, I was kind of moaning about Ninjago for the same reason I'm going to moan about this one. So you're supposed to be kind of like shooting off these webs, right? It's supposed to be motion sensors, and they're pretty good because to begin with, you can kind of move around and there's a picture or like a sort of video of you on the screen, and it moves in sequence with you, right? I mean, from that point of view, the tracking is pretty good. It's exhausting, for starters. You know, to try and get a good score, you're doing this, your wrists are like, your arms are killing you by the end of it. And I'm not sure that it's, even though it's good at tracking your position, it's not good at mimicking the direction you'd be throwing in. So you're sort of thrown over here and it's going over there, and yeah, I wasn't a fan, and for their newest ride, I found it a bit of a letdown. So yeah, that's the two main rides in this area that I would scrap. That's not good. Back over in Toy Story Land, there is the parachutes. And they're pretty cool. Like I think it's 4 seats, back to back, multiple parachutes. Takes you up, you got a great view from up there, especially right now. You'll be able to see all the construction work that's going on. And then it's a sort of gentle drop. It's not like a, you know, it's not a high intensity drop. Your stomach's not gonna jump up into your throat or anything like that. It's okay. Again, for its target audience, they probably love it. So I'm not gonna scrap it because I always say flat rides are important, but I will put this one in take it or leave it. And this next one is probably one of the most irritating rides that exists anywhere in the world. Or at least it has the most irritating theme tune that gets stuck in your head. And yeah, I'm trying not to get it into mine right now. And that is It's a Small World. So again, boat ride, very, very, very long and slow boat ride, with loads and loads of kind of animatronic scenes from various parts of the world. And listen, it's great for what it is. I get it's an iconic attraction. It's probably far more appreciated by the younger audiences. It's great to sort of, that they try and have this inclusive all around the world thing going on. But that tune is very irritating and definitely gets stuck in your head. So I'm afraid this one is also going to go in that take it or leave it pile. Well, it's no surprise that there is a significant amount of things in this list that I have put into keep, and then a few that are in the kind of scrap and the take it or leave. It's Disney, it's one of the big guys, they're obviously kind of top of their game, and yeah, I think it's a fantastic park. It's certainly one I've visited multiple times. As I say, most recently in December, I did a little challenge. So if you've enjoyed this one, hit that like button and do subscribe. And if you haven't seen the challenge, I'll put it up there and I'll see you over there.